What's up, you guys? Teller checking in for week 2 of season 8's Dana White's Contender series. We come into week 2 off a very, very hot week 1. We had 2 official plays that we targeted, capitalized on both of them. One was at plus 170 underdog. We picked every single fight correctly on the card. If you guys were hanging out with me for the fight companion, as we did for the whole card, we were even calling every contract signee. I mean, everything. We were calling methods of victory. It was really a blast. I should be doing the fight companion for this week. Stick with me. If I'm doing it, you'll see it posted on the channel. But week to week, you can expect to see those fight companions. I'm not positive for next week, but I should be doing it. And we will have official action for this card. We have a lot of heavy favorites scattered throughout this card. But I will tell you guys, I have an underdog pick for this 5-fight card. And I think there is some value out there. So we're going to dive into all that. We have 2 fighters on this card that were just featured on Dana White's Looking for a Fight. 2 Canadians in Pytlik and Michael Imperato. And both of them have interesting stories behind them. I'll dive into that. And I'm not even going to hold you guys up. Just note, we are powered by BETUS. If you sign up through the link in the description of this video, you'll get a 125% match on your first 3 deposits. No other sports books are giving you those type of bonus matches on your deposits. So just note that, guys. I should be doing a fight companion for this episode. I plan on doing those every Tuesday night. So if I'm doing it, you'll see it posted on the channel. And we can all watch these fights together. I will have some official action out on this card. So see if I hit there. And with that all being said, let's jump into the first fight.
The teller. The teller. The teller.
So the UFC doing something similar this week to what they did last week. And I think it's definitely a calculated move, right? Kicking off week 2, you have another lower weight class, high-paced matchup that is very likely to deliver. There's a very slim chance when you throw these 2 fighters, Billy Brand and Cody Haddon, in the cage, all right, when you watch their tape and you know what they're about, there's a very slim chance a matchup like this is not going to be a fun fight to watch, okay? So it's a calculated move. It's a very intelligent move by the UFC because it sets the tone for the remaining fights for the show, and it gravitates and it snatches the fans' attention, right? It's going to make us more likely to stick through the whole show, at least for the common folk that are tuning in for the show. I mean, us hardcore fans are going to be tuned in regardless, obviously. But this is a fight on paper. It's probably the most exciting fight on the card. Billy Brand's taking on Cody Haddon in the bantamweight division. Billy Brand, just 5-1 as a professional, 28 years old, but he's been around the fight scene for some time. Made his amateur debut all the way back in 2013. He's been on the West Coast scene over here in the States. Recently fighting under Uriah Faber's promotion as a pro. Doesn't have a lengthy resume, but it's been looking good, man. You break down tape on him, he's been looking good. His only loss coming to the very dangerous and very highly regarded up-and-comer Peyton Talbot. So just note that. As an amateur, a good amount of amateur experience, ended up being 7-1 there before turning pro. And, you know, as I break down tape on him, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Even in the Peyton Talbot fight, if you guys didn't watch that fight and you just look at it and say, oh, he got finished by Peyton, it wasn't even that he made it to the 3rd round. It's actually, as that fight went on, especially early on in that fight, he had a lot of success. He was tagging Talbot up. I think that he's a fighter that has promising striking. He's a little undersized, but he's a fighter that when you're understanding, when you're breaking down tape on him, the tape is from years ago, and he's still looking to be a polished striker. Okay, so that's something that stands out to me right off the rip because you know at 28 years old now, he's just going to be the best version that we've ever seen from him, and I think that he has real potential to go out there and land some knockouts in the octagon. I really do. Okay, now the fighter that he's facing here in Cody Haddon, fighting out of Australia, is a very fun fighter to break down tape on. You watch his fights on YouTube. I mean, this dude absolutely brings it. And similarly to Billy Brand, his only loss as a pro comes to a respectable fighter in Steve Erceg. Let me not go on about Steve Erceg right now because I'm very disappointed in the IQ that he had in that last fight. Just sitting there striking it out with Kai Kara-France as long as that fight took place and never even looking to clinch up and try to get some scrambles going where he had a clear advantage in the grappling department, but we'll let that go. But we know Steve Erceg's a high-level fighter, so that loss doesn't look that bad. He went to a decision with him there. When you watch tape on this dude, Cody Haddon, he is an absolute bully when he's in there. Now, he's been fighting very low-level competition. That's one thing for sure, but you gotta love his attitude in there and the way he conducts himself. I mean, this guy goes in there, he looks like he's an 8th grader that has a beef with the 6th grader, and he's catching him out there by the basketball courts after school, and just he knows he's gonna get the better of him, just beating these dudes down, looking to be pretty well-rounded as well. The one thing that stands out to me is with his striking, although he looks to inflict that damage and he's super aggressive, a lot of his strikes come from very east and west, and that to me could be a problem against Billy Brand, who, as far as I'm concerned, is a more polished striker. I do believe that. So I'm going to cut to the chase here. I'm picking a dog right off the rip. Why not? I mean, we don't have a lot of opportunities to pick dogs on a card like this with these very high favorites, and I think it's just very likely that Billy Brand wins this fight. At the very least, this fight should be capped a lot closer than it is, okay? And I've been looking at this, with the line touching as high as plus 155, and interestingly enough, people are catching on because right now, Billy Brand is a plus 115 on BETUS, and I think the value is on Billy Brand here. This is a fight where we got to see how it plays out. There's no guarantees in here. 2 young fighters looking to make names for themselves. 2 fighters that have fought lower level competition. We're going to see who rises to the top here, who's going to be the cream. But I wouldn't be chalking up, especially where these lines opened up. I would not have been targeting Cody Haddon, which he was as high as a minus 205. There's no way I'm coughing up 2-1 odds on him. I know he looks good, has a little bit of a size advantage in there, but this is a step up in competition, and he may be outstruck in this fight, or he may be hit with a clean shot, and we may see that chin tested. There's a lot to be seen from these fighters, okay? There's no guarantees, obviously. Now, Cody Haddon might show up and really prove to be the real deal. He may fight this similar to what we've been seeing from him in the past, where he just goes out there and he's so confident and he bullies Billy Brand. But I think that Billy checks off a lot of boxes, and I don't think that he'll just flake out like that. I think he'll bring the fight, and I think at the very least, this will be a competitive fight. I like the dog value on Billy Brand, and I'm really interested to see how that plays out, and I'm hoping that one of these fighters gets a contract because they are fun to watch. So how about this one here? If you guys saw the stare downs that were aired today, filming this Monday afternoon, I mean, look at the size advantage that Rowston is going to have over Torrez Finney. He is at the very least, way taller, because don't underestimate the size of Finney. I know he's a shorter fighter at just 5'8" for this division. I mean, dude, he is built like a tank. We do have to note that. Torrez Finney, a very fun fighter to watch, and we saw that in his Dana White's Contender Series debut, which was 2 fights ago for him, where he had a victory over Yuri Panfarov, who's a very respectable fighter on the regional scene. We saw him on Dana White's looking for a fight as well. Really, Yuri was the fighter that was supposed to go on that episode and get the contract. He was the fighter that everybody was looking at, and Torrez Finney just pushed that relentless pace with the grappling. That's what he does. When you see him in the cage, man, I don't know why this is what stands out to me. I know they don't look similar, but kind of reminds me of like a vintage Rustim Khabilov. If you guys remember Khabilov, he was part of that initial surge of Dagestani fighters coming in with that nasty grappling. When he was in there, he wasn't looking to just take you down and kind of ground and pound you. He was looking to throw you over his shoulder and slam you on your head, similar to what Rory McDonald did to Nate Diaz and their matchup when Nate bumped up to the welterweight division back in the day. But, I mean, you gotta love fighters that like to use their grappling but do it in an entertaining type of fashion. This guy will pick you up, throw you over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, run you to the other side of the octagon, and then drop you on your head. When he's in the cage, it's very likely he's going to pop your shoulder out of place by dropping you as you try to break your fall. Maybe you see something similar to that Joe Pyfer fight when he fought on Dana White's Contender Series. I mean, this guy, he will pick Rowston up in this fight. As much bigger as Cam is, I'm telling you, Torrez will get in on him, especially in the first round, and will lift him up, and I think he will drop him down. So hopefully Rowston's limbs are safe as he's going down. Rowston, kind of known as more of a striker, or seems to have more of a decorated striking pedigree than a Torrez Finney, but when you actually watch him in his MMA fights, he's a fighter that welcomes the grappling, really pushes with the grappling. So interested to see how that plays out. I know that Rowston has some professional Muay Thai fights and whatnot. That's where he wants to keep this fight, in my opinion. I think that he wants to stay on the outside, try to outstrike Torrez Finney. He'll have We don't have his reach here, but he has to have a pretty big reach advantage. I mean, you would think at the very least we know he has the length advantage in his legs if he could use those kicks, but Torrez Finney is going to be on him. He'll be grabbing those legs up. Torrez Finney is relentless with the chain wrestling. He will shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, okay? And even as bulky as he is and as muscular as he is, when you watch tape on him, I don't see any signs of him slowing down so far in his career. I mean, he goes. He has a pretty good gas tank. We saw that in his fight on Dana White's Contender Series against Panfarov. Came out in the second round, was just continuously shooting, and that was after being wobbled in that first round by Panfarov. He's just more of a prime fighter at 25 now, has the experience of already fighting on this show. Okay, so I'm not that intrigued with that, but that length advantage that Cam Rowston has, and Cam's been fighting very low level fighters over there in Australia. He's 8-2, has some questionable losses. I like Torrez Finney to get the job done here, and I think that Torrez Finney needs to be fighting in the UFC. He's a spectacle to watch. He brings the fight, okay? He's not a fighter that really brings... I mean, he'll look to knock your head off, too. Don't get it twisted, but he's not a striking-based fighter first and foremost, but he looks to put on a show with his grappling, which can be exciting, man. There's actually, in my opinion, there's nothing more exciting than a fighter picking you up and slamming you, a slam KO. I mean, that's almost as good as it gets. That's at the top of the game. We see knockouts all the time due to strikes, but Torrez Finney has the type of potential to break guys as he's slamming them down, and he's a fun fighter to watch. I mean, that's just what I'm saying here. I like Torrez Finney to get the job done here. Look at this betting line, though. He opened up as a minus 400 on BetUS. He's now a minus 380. He did touch minus 350 2 days ago on the 17th over the weekend. And I understand why he's the favorite here. It's clear to me. I mean, this guy is going to go run across the cage. He's going to get in on those hips, and he looks to be somewhat trustworthy with his cardio. But can Rowston hurt him coming in? Can he eventually stuff some takedowns and get this fight to later rounds and maybe tee off with his striking and hurt Finney and get a knockout? Yes, it is possible. But I'm on Finney. I think Finney can get a finish here, just breaking him down with the grappling and maybe some ground and pound or something like that. I think he's just going to muscle and push through until he finds a finish. I'll take him for the finish, but I'll be clear here, not crazy about the odds. I mean, to cough up almost 4-1 odds, man, that's high, man. And let's say he does struggle getting those takedowns. As I said, Cam Rowston has some experience with his own grappling and that length advantage, and maybe he lands a shot from the outside, but 4-1 odds is steep for me. Okay, so I'm looking at Torrez Finney maybe inside the distance. If you guys want to see what kind of lines you have available there, but it's a hard one to bet on, guys. But sit back, enjoy this one. Put your tush in the cush. Sit back and enjoy Torrez Finney just being an absolute wrecking ball in there. So this fight right here is bringing the most energy with it in the cage. We saw them at the stare downs, man. It was heated, and I expect all of that to be brought into the cage with them. I think this fight's going to be a great one. We'll see how long it lasts. Cortavious, Romious, his first fight on Dana White's Contender Series didn't last long at all. It only lasted mere seconds. That was that fight where he was knocked out against Ramon Tavares. That's a fighter I'm very high on, a nasty boxer that's been working with Uriah Faber, working on his grappling. Just had someone pull up to his house, if you guys saw that online. They were in the driveway, and they had some guns. He had his own heat on them there, and he fired off on them. He needs to move out of Duval because you got to get out of Jacksonville. There's no reason for anyone to be living in Jacksonville. If you're living in Jacksonville and you're listening to this, get out of there, all right? And that's what I told Ramon. He actually liked the comment I wrote, but I said, hey, it's a lot easier for people to move than they think it is. People make it harder than it is. Grab your family, especially when you're the alpha male there. Grab your family and get out of there. But back to this fight here. Cortavious Romious was tagged early in that fight. He's a fighter that could put himself in those types of situations even moving forward. I do believe that because he has so much fire in him that he wants to put on a show for the fans. Hence the nickname, Are You Not Entertained? Like in that Tavares fight, I think he had a clear advantage with his grappling, and he sits there on the feet duking it out and got knocked out. All right. I mean, that was really low fight IQ, if you ask me. Now, it's fun to watch, and when that fight happened, I mean, I was jumping out of my seat. I enjoyed it. He put a show on for the fans, but you don't want to back fighters like that, right? You want fighters that are calculated and go out there and get the job done, okay? And Cortavious Romious, not only can he knock you out, he carries heat in his hands, but he's proven to be a pretty damn solid grappler. I've seen him on the regional scene just throwing dudes around, ragdolling dudes down on the mat, ground and pounding dudes up. He's a well-rounded fighter, but you'll want to see fighters fight to their clear path to victory, okay? He's fighting a fighter here and Michael Imperato, who is more of a one-dimensional type of fighter, just on the other aspect. He's a grappler instead of a striker like Tavares was. Michael Imperato, I'll just let you guys know, he has an interesting backstory. He was just on Dana White's Dana White's looking for a fight. He's a fighter that was set to fight Aljamain Sterling back in the day when Sterling was 25 years old. Okay, this was like 10 years ago. And the UFC cut him due to some things that he said. And I believe they were racial or about a certain type of people. You guys can look it up for yourself. I don't know too much about it, so I don't want to talk on that too much, but I know it was something of racial or also about another group of people. So the UFC cut ties with him, and I think that he deserves another chance. I mean, 10 years later, at the very least, I like the matchup too, right? Because there's a little bit of a backstory to it, and let's see if he gets punished in there. And I'm sure some people will be rooting for him to get his head knocked off, and that's very likely going to be the case here. In fact, I think that is what's going to be the case. I think that Cortavious Romious is going to knock him out. All right. If you look at Imperato's fight that took place just under 2 years ago against Edward Walls, he was flatlined, dude. He was knocked out before he touched the canvas. He bounced his head off the canvas. He was out. Okay. He's a fighter that's 34 years old. He's not young. The one thing that he does good is grapple. He has 0 knockouts in himself. So there's not a high chance that he's going to catch Cortavious, even if Cortavious puts himself in a position like he was in the Tavares fight. Imperato, not one knockout throughout his entire professional career. Although I will say this, I watched some tape on him, and he does come out hot in the first round. So he will go out there and look to put you out. He just has had 0 success doing that. His grappling is good, and I think maybe he can find some success there, but Romious is very good at grappling too, man. I just think that Cortavious Romious is the much more promising fighter. You know, he's the younger fighter, has so much more potential. I also just want to note that Imperato looks to be in the best shape of his career. I think that I know that he had to have worked his tail off for this fight. So he's a dangerous man. He knows his back's up against the wall. This is his last chance. But Romious is a dangerous man too. We think he's going to get another opportunity. He's 30 years old. He's not that young. Already lost in DWCS once. If he loses this, he's done as well. So he's just as motivated. I think Romious is the more well-rounded, dangerous fighter. I think he's going to knock Michael Imperato out on the feet. He has the grappling to defend Imperato's grappling attack, and that's how I see the fight going down. Let's take a look at the betting line here. Another heavy favorite over on BETUS. Romious is now a minus 345. Could have caught him at flat 300. I think there was some value there around that line, but you really were hoping it was going to go the other way. I mean, anything up here, I'm sorry, guys. I'm not going to give you some exciting advice. It's just, I mean, I wouldn't even really parlay this. Imperato, you know, there's more value on Imperato as the dog, in my opinion. But this fight very well can play out where Romious just goes out there and finishes him up early. But we have to see how it plays out. A steep line. What do you guys want from me? Maybe we're looking at unders. Check the unders. See if you can get a decent line on an under in this fight. I think this is a fight that we do see finished before the halfway mark. Okay, so keep an eye on that. And you're targeting knockouts, specific knockouts. But get that line down because I don't know, man. What are you going to do with that? And if you're playing it safe, you want to just chip up on a little two-teamer. Maybe you throw Romious and Finney, but I wouldn't necessarily advise that. We got the biggest favorite on the night here in Rizvan Kuniev. He's taking out Hugo, Cunha. I don't know, their names kind of ring a similar bell to me there, Cunha and Kuniev. They do have some other similarities too. They're two men that are kind of flabby when they're in the cage, not in the best shape. They have good grappling. They've been in there with recognizable names, and they've had their hand raised. One clear advantage for me is Kuniev. Not even that he's the best striker, but I think his striking is better than Hugo's. Hugo has very low output on the feet. He is really more of a grappling-based fighter. If he's going to have success in this fight, I think that somehow he has to get this fight down to the mat and work some magic down there. I really just don't bank on him making too much happen on the feet. Kuniev, like I said, a well-rounded fighter. I think he has the grappling, defense, and even offense to work Cunha here as well. So, I mean, that's one thing that he really has in his back pocket. But the big question mark, man, about Rizvan Kuniev is 12-2-1. Let's just talk a little bit about his resume because it's notable. Fought on Dana White's Contender Series, got that finish in the 3rd round, didn't get the contract, goes out there, finishes ex-UFC fighter Anthony Hamilton, one of the worst fighters that ever fought in the UFC. We've had that conversation, man. This is a name that's really went under the radar. Anthony Hamilton was 3-7, had so many first round and early knockout losses. He trained over at AKA. I heard that they had a whole banner of him up, with all the AKA guys, and they had to tear that thing down. I say that joking, but Anthony Hamilton was a bad fighter, man. In his last fight, though, this is the one that we're talking about. He defeated Haddon Ferreira, who is a very dangerous and talented fighter over in the PFL, and it was overturned due to him testing positive for anabolic steroids, drostanolone. Let's try that again. Tested for steroids, drostanolone, metanolone, bedotaline, 19-nazaridonate. I mean, those names. Hey, if I could say one good thing about my pronunciations on those words is you could tell that I've never touched any banned substances. All right, guys, because I'm not familiar with any of that type of stuff. But I know that's a lot of stuff to fail for. And if you look at how he looked in that fight, you could pull that fight up on YouTube. He looked in so much better shape for that fight than any other time we've seen him. He looked way thinner than the Dana White's Contender Series fight that he had against Edvin Santos. And, I mean, you got to wonder how he's going to be looking here. I mean, well, actually, we don't have to wonder. We saw him today. I saw him on the scales, and he does look a little bit more like the fighter he was before that fight, before his last fight. Okay, so that's something you have to take note of. Even the version of him not on the performance-enhancing drugs, it looks better than anything that I've seen from Hugo. If I want to just make it a little bit more interesting, I will just note Hugo looked to be in better shape compared to some of the times we've seen him in the past. Okay, but that's not saying too much either. Rizvan Kuniev, this is kind of a safer play. Now, the line's out of whack, but it's a safe play because he has all the avenues to avoid the danger of the grappling from Hugo and then just skin out volume him. I mean, this should be kind of I think this should be a cruise victory for Rizvan Kuniev, and let's just see if he gets signed. But look at the line. I mentioned he's the biggest favorite. He's now a minus 700. Want nothing to do with touching anything like that. I wouldn't want really nothing to do with it even at minus 500. Just, I'm not liking it. I'm not overly impressed with what I've seen from him, even though he should go out there and get the job done. But that's a high line. I'm not really even trying to push you guys to target Hugo because I think I don't know, man. This fight, I'm sorry, guys. It's a shitty matchup in a way. But what can I get? What kind of advice can I give you guys here? Don't bet on the fight.
Michael Vick here at BetUS.com. Get it all. Huge bonuses, great odds, a race book, live in-game betting, and a casino. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.
In the main event, we got a welterweight matchup between Pytlik and Andreas Gustafsson. Pat was the fighter that just fought. Dana White's looking for a fight, and really he wasn't a fighter that Dana White was going there to watch at all. But if you remember, his wife, if you guys saw it, his wife goes up to Dana and he said, hey, make sure you watch my husband. He's going to go out there. You know, if he puts him out, can you give him a contract? You know, if he goes out there and whoops this dude or whatever. Really, really cool wife he has, all right? And she was in the back room when Dana White let him know that he was going to give him an opportunity to fight on Dana White's Contender Series. And the wife, man, he's doing good there, man. Pat's doing good there. Just 10 professional fights, 35 years old, one of the oldest fighters you're going to see Dana White give an opportunity like this. But I think he was deserving in that victory that he just had over Ryan Leninger. He went out there, brought the fight, broke him down, got the finish. But you could tell in that fight that he's a limited fighter. And that fight, even though they try to sell it on the show like it was like an exciting finish, I saw a lot of holes in what was going on there. That wasn't the highest level fight, to say the least. But he's a scrappy dude. He can make things ugly in there, and I think he is a tough dude. So, I mean, he definitely has an opportunity to make this an ugly fight and be live to win this fight. I do believe that because I'm not completely sold on Andreas Gustafsson. I think that he's more of a bully, but I'm curious to see what he's going to look like when someone brings the fight to him. Not overly impressed with his resume. You know, a good amount of finishes and whatnot. He's going out there and he's bringing the fight, throws big power. I mean, but when you talk about his striking, he's a fighter that throws. We talked about a fighter earlier in the card. He's another one that throws his strikes very east and west. Okay, that could be a problem. Yeah, it looks good when he's coming all the way out there with these Hail Marys and he's clipping dudes in the side of the head and knocking them out. But what happens when the level of competition rises and you got a dude that's countering you sharply with straighter shots and nice crisp hooks and they touch your chin? You know, is that the type of fighter that Pat is? I don't know. But I think that Gustafsson's going to close the distance, look to land big shots, and even mix up the grappling. He likes to go in and try to bully with the grappling and all that. He just kind of reminds me of a dude that goes out there expecting to beat you down. But I'm really curious to see how he's going to look when he goes through some adversity. And out of his 12 fights, he already has 2 losses to questionable opponents. Yeah, I think that Pat has the potential to be that kind of fighter, to test him there. All in all, I do lean towards Gustafsson's way. I think that he'll just be a little bit ahead with his energy throughout this fight. But if this fight goes on, man, to the second and third rounds, I would not be surprised, to say the least, if Pat is right in this fight and potentially wins it. I'll say that. So I think there's more value on the underdog in the main event. Pat right now is a plus 185 on BetUS. I think there's more value on the underdog. I'd be pushing you to chalk up a little bit of money on Pat, which you might even be able to get him in the plus 200s. We'll see how the line trends. I know it's touched 200 in the 200s, out there. But I wouldn't be targeting Gustafsson anywhere near the minus 270 line. So that's my strong advice to you guys. He may go up there and live up to the hype and whatnot. And also, you do have to note that, Andreas has fought 5 times compared to the last 2 of Pat. So yeah, he's been a much more active fighter, but he's 33. He's not much younger. I mean, he has a little bit more left to give, but he's not much younger than Pat. Pat's 35, but Pat has been very inactive. He had a guillotine loss from Jake Lindsay 5.5 years ago, but he bounced back with 2 victories in a row and looks to be in really good shape on the scales. I mean, I think that he will be motivated for this fight, and there's a real likelihood that he brings the fight and it plays out closely, and it might be a sloppy type of war where he will be live to win. This is the type of fight where the value's in the dog, in my opinion. But I will say Gustafsson will be a little bit ahead. We'll see. Betting value on Pat. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up week 2. Like I said, I should be doing the fight companion, so join me, and it's going to be a fun one. Make sure you're following me on social media. I've been putting out some wild new content that I've been working on, and made this little thing. If you guys want to go check that out, I'm working on all types of new content on IG, and I think that you guys will enjoy it. So I'm on IG at MMA Fortune Teller _. And, of course, you could catch me on Twitter at the MMA Teller. And what else, guys? Hit that like button, subscribe. Please let me know you guys like what I'm putting out there. I've been hustling. I've been grinding. Maybe I got a little too crazy on the mic from my fight companion when DDP won, because I know I know that some of you guys maybe didn't like I was getting a little too crazy, but I really don't care, man. But, hopefully I didn't rub too many of you guys the wrong way, at least the ones that I like out there. But I was feeling it, all right, guys, because you got to understand, lost a big play on Kuniev, split decision loss there that really cost me big money. I mean, so I had my back up against the wall. You guys know Drickus was a free play that I put on the channel and was a big, heavy official play target of mine. When he won that fight, the energy was just coming out of me, guys. So hopefully you guys don't think I'm crazy, but I like to enjoy myself, man. If you would have seen me when I was younger, you go out and watch the fights with me. I like to be out there, man. I like to get crazy, and that's just me sitting in a room by myself, sitting in the lab by myself. So imagine me at the bars and whatnot, but hopefully you guys enjoy yourselves too. Don't worry too much about what people think about you. Just be a good person. Don't be over the top to an extent. You know what I mean? Be good and enjoy these fights. I hope to catch you guys tomorrow night. I should be going live. Signing out. Teller.
The teller.